She's saying, no, 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 I'm letting him be a man sometimes.
I think
It was quite sweet.
Yeah.
Can I just say, I thought that was so funny because it's like, oh right, you let him, the one thing you let him manage his relations with his own family. That's it's incredibly generous of you. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
But it's so interesting because it's like basically confirming everything that we've all been.
The timing was what immediately raised eyebrows. Not the cover itself, not even the article. The timing. Because the People magazine feature centered on Prince Harry and Meghan Markle was reportedly scheduled to land during one of the most symbolically sensitive windows imaginable. The third day of King Charles' high-profile state visit to the United States, and on the exact same day, Prince William and Princess Catherine marked their 15th wedding anniversary. And according to commentators on this week's royally unfiltered broadcast, that overlap was far too precise to dismiss as coincidence.
They were appalled that Meghan would wear a blue striped shirt that many Jews thought were evocative of an Auschwitz camp uniform to the Bondi Beach massacre site and then immediately sell it on her new AI one-off platform.
Kinsey Schofield, joined by royal commentator Tom Sykes and media analyst Paula Froelich, framed the release strategy as something much bigger than ordinary celebrity publicity. Their argument was not simply that the Sussexes wanted attention, it was that the cover functioned as a calculated counter-programming operation against two major royal moments unfolding simultaneously. If you enjoy deep royal analysis that goes beyond the headlines and examines the media strategy, timing, and institutional power plays happening underneath the surface, make sure to subscribe, because this story becomes far more revealing the deeper you follow the timeline. Because here is the critical point many casual readers miss. Major magazine covers are not thrown together overnight. A People magazine cover is planned weeks in advance. Publication schedules are coordinated carefully. Public relations teams know the release windows. They understand the surrounding media environment. And according to the analysis presented on Royally Unfiltered, the Sussex team would almost certainly have known exactly what else would dominate royal headlines that same week. King Charles was in the middle of a diplomatically significant American visit. William and Catherine were reaching a major marriage milestone, strongly associated with stability, continuity, and public affection inside the monarchy. Then suddenly, right in the middle of both narratives, arrives a highly personal Sussex feature, pushing a very specific message. And this is where the conversation shifts from celebrity coverage into media strategy. Because commentators noted that portions of the article read less like neutral reporting and more like direct rebuttals to recent independent royal commentary circulating online. One line in particular drew attention: the suggestion that Meghan allows Harry to take the lead on certain royal matters. Now, on its own, that sentence might sound harmless, but Paula Froelich argued the wording appeared crafted as a response to growing commentary, suggesting Meghan largely controls the Sussex household's external operations and public positioning. Observers especially connected it to recent discussions surrounding staffing decisions and household management claims examined across independent royal media channels. According to Froelich's interpretation, the article contained multiple subtle clapbacks aimed at critics and commentators who had spent months dissecting Sussex media strategy online. And then Tom Sykes added another layer entirely. His reading was that parts of the article almost resembled artificially generated rebuttal language, familiar criticisms mirrored back in inverted form to create an opposing narrative. In other words, phrases circulating in royal commentary spaces appeared reframed and recycled inside the People feature itself. Whether viewers agree with that interpretation or not, the broader implication was striking: that the Sussex media operation may no longer be ignoring independent royal commentary networks, but actively monitoring and responding to them through carefully managed press channels. But the most explosive part of the discussion centered on Queen Elizabeth II, because the article reportedly framed Harry and Meghan as continuing a model of service the late Queen allegedly understood and supported. and critics immediately pushed back against that characterization by pointing directly to the public record. The Queen's own statements following the Sandringham summit in 2020 were clear. The so-called half-in, half-out arrangement was deemed incompatible with official public service. Harry and Meghan were given a one-year review period, after which they confirmed their intention to pursue commercial independence outside the working monarchy. Only then did the palace formally close the arrangement, which is why commentators like Sykes argued the new people-framing attempts to retroactively soften or reinterpret a conflict the historical record already documents quite clearly. And according to those critics, the most controversial aspect of all is that Queen Elizabeth is no longer here to publicly clarify her position herself. But the broadcast did not stop with media strategy or magazine timing. The most consequential part of the discussion may actually have been the update surrounding King Charles' health, because according to Tom Sykes' sourcing, the palace is now operating from a position far more optimistic than many outside observers previously assumed. Sykes stated that Charles has reportedly been undergoing an advanced treatment program involving weekly immunotherapy injections built around RNA-based technology, similar to the medical platforms developed during the COVID vaccine era. Alongside the immunotherapy component, the king is also believed to be receiving radiotherapy as part of the broader treatment structure, and according to Sykes' sources, the treatment appears to be working. That detail dramatically changes the larger institutional picture, because when Charles delivered his Christmas address and openly suggested that the treatment had been successful, many people viewed the statement cautiously, almost symbolically, but Sykes argues the king should be taken at his word. More importantly, he points to the behavior of people surrounding Charles privately. The visible confidence, the calmness, the sense of operational optimism, as one of the strongest indirect indicators available when direct medical disclosure remains limited. Experienced royal observers often study body language and institutional behavior for precisely this reason. Palaces rarely reveal full medical realities publicly, but they do reveal confidence levels operationally. And right now, according to Sykes' reading, the confidence level appears high. Of course, every serious illness carries uncertainty, and cancer trajectories can change quickly in either direction. That caveat remains important, but as things currently stand, Charles appears to be responding positively enough that the monarchy is no longer behaving as though his reign is merely transitional or temporary. And this is where the Sussex dimension becomes strategically important, because Charles' ability to continue carrying out demanding royal duties while undergoing treatment sends a much larger institutional message. His May visit to Washington involved 5 days of intense diplomatic engagements, major public appearances, state-level responsibilities, and extensive travel. Then, remarkably, Charles continued onward to Bermuda, even after Queen Camilla returned to Britain. That level of operational activity matters enormously. It signals that the treatment protocol, while serious, is not incapacitating him politically or institutionally. And according to analysts like Paula Froelich, that changes the long-term timeline the Sussex household may have been quietly planning around. For years, many royal commentators assumed Charles' reign could potentially be relatively short following his diagnosis, leading to earlier accession by Prince William. But if Charles remains active and medically stable for a significantly extended period, the Sussex strategy suddenly operates within a completely different time frame. That means Harry and Meghan potentially have years, not months, to continue expanding their commercial ecosystem tied to royal association, media storytelling, memoir pipelines, lifestyle branding, and public narrative positioning. And according to Froelich's interpretation, that is exactly why the institutional strategy, known informally among commentators as the "let them" doctrine, becomes so important. The palace, rather than engaging publicly in endless rebuttal cycles, appears increasingly willing to let the Sussex operation continue speaking, branding, and commercializing itself, while trusting that public contrast will eventually become self-evident over time. In other words, the monarchy's strategy may not be immediate confrontation, but long-term patience. The theory is simple. Authentic royal duty versus commercial imitation will eventually separate itself naturally in the eyes of the public. But then came another controversy that complicated everything further. During discussion of the recent Australian tour, Paula Froelich focused on one specific moment that triggered significant backlash online: Meghan's visit to the Bondi Beach Memorial Site, honoring victims of the 2024 mass attack. The issue was not merely the appearance itself, it was the clothing choice combined with the immediate commercial context surrounding it. According to viewers cited by Froelich, including some Jewish commentators online, the blue-striped shirt Meghan wore visually resembled historical concentration camp uniforms associated with Auschwitz imagery. Then came the second layer of criticism. The outfit reportedly appeared on a commercial fashion platform for sale the very same day. Now, to be clear, there is no evidence the resemblance was intentional. But critics argued the overlap between memorial symbolism, Holocaust visual associations, and immediate monetization created what Froelich described as a severe tone management failure. And in high-level public relations operations, those failures matter enormously. Because whether the outfit passed through cultural review and was approved anyway, or whether no review process existed at all, both interpretations raise difficult questions about the Sussex team's broader media management structure. And according to Froelich, that Australian tour may not have produced the positive institutional impact the Sussex side later attempted to project publicly. One of the most damaging details raised during the broadcast was not emotional or symbolic. It was numerical. According to the Roy Morgan polling discussed by Paula Froelich and Tom Sykes, roughly 80% of Australians were aware Harry and Meghan were in the country during the tour. On the surface, that sounds impressive. Massive visibility, huge public awareness. But then came the second number, the one that completely changed the interpretation. That same polling reportedly showed that around 80% either did not want them there or simply did not care. And suddenly the entire successful tour narrative looked very different. Because visibility alone does not equal positive impact. In fact, from a public relations perspective, high visibility combined with weak public enthusiasm can become actively damaging. According to the panel's reading, the Sussex operation succeeded in generating attention, but failed to generate the emotional goodwill they expected would accompany it. That distinction matters enormously, especially because the People magazine framing presented the Australian appearances as overwhelmingly successful, warmly received, and emotionally affirming. But critics argue the polling data undercuts that construction almost completely. The disconnect between the media narrative and measurable public sentiment is exactly what commentators like Froelich believe has become one of the defining structural problems surrounding the Sussex brand. And then Tom Sykes introduced what may have been the most devastating point of the entire discussion: the counterfactual, not what happened, could have happened. Sykes asked viewers to imagine an entirely different timeline beginning back at the Sandringham Summit in January 2020. Imagine, he argued, that Harry and Meghan had accepted Queen Elizabeth's position that a half-in arrangement was institutionally impossible. Imagine they had remained working royals for a defined transitional period before negotiating a quieter, more carefully structured departure later on. According to Sykes' analysis, the outcome today could look radically different. Instead of operating independently from California under constant commercial pressure, Harry and Meghan might now occupy a position structurally similar to Edward and Sophie's old Wessex model: semi-independent but institutionally protected, financially stable, and still closely connected to the monarchy. Sykes even pointed to Royal Lodge, the massive Windsor property long associated with Prince Andrew, as a symbolic illustration of the life potentially available to them in that alternate timeline. Institutional staffing, historic royal access, long-term security, continued ceremonial relevance, a sustainable royal-adjacent existence without permanent warfare against the institution itself. Instead, critics argue, the Sussex household traded institutional permanence for celebrity market volatility. And this is where the contrast becomes especially sharp. While Prince William and Princess Catherine continue operating inside the state structure, including reports of future White House-level engagement tied to diplomatic and sporting events, Harry and Meghan increasingly appear locked into entertainment world economics, where every appearance, documentary, product launch, or speaking engagement carries commercial expectations attached to it. That difference in trajectory is becoming harder to ignore. The broadcast then pivoted toward another fascinating layer: King Charles' state visit to the United States and persistent rumors surrounding his private feelings about Donald Trump. According to commentary circulating through parts of American political media, Charles supposedly harbors strong personal dislike toward Trump. But Tom Sykes pushed back heavily against that narrative, arguing that nothing in Charles' public behavior during the visit remotely supported it. In fact, the opposite appeared true. Photographs showed warm exchanges, active conversation, and visible diplomatic ease between the two men. Charles' state dinner speech reportedly landed so effectively it received bipartisan standing ovations. Whatever private opinions may or may not exist, Sykes's point was operationally simple. Charles behaved exactly as a monarch is expected to behave, and Camilla reportedly did the same. Rumors circulated through Washington gossip circles suggesting Camilla requested seating arrangements to avoid proximity to Melania Trump. But Froelich dismissed the story entirely, arguing Camilla's decades inside royal life have required her to sit beside countless political figures she may not personally align with. That, according to Froelich, is what institutional discipline actually looks like. Paula Froelich's reference to Joan Rivers may have sounded almost incidental during the broadcast, but it actually carried a deeper meaning than many viewers realized. According to Froelich, Rivers genuinely liked Charles and Camilla personally long before they occupied their current institutional positions. And in Froelich's framing, that mattered because Joan Rivers was not known for sentimental judgment. She was famously sharp, socially ruthless when necessary, and highly experienced at reading powerful people. If Rivers kept someone close, it usually meant they had passed what Froelich jokingly described as the Rivers test, a kind of unofficial character assessment from someone who had spent decades around celebrities, politicians, and elite public figures. That becomes important because it functions as an independent character reference outside the palace public relations machine itself. Then the discussion turned back toward Harry and Meghan, and this is where Tom Sykes introduced what may be the most revealing strategic point of the entire conversation. According to Sykes, he recently spoke with a New York-based personal brand consultant who insisted he had no formal connection to the Sussex household, despite living suspiciously close to their media orbit. The consultant reportedly asked Sykes what advice he would give Harry and Meghan if he were guiding their communication strategy. Sykes' answer was remarkably direct. Step away from the public battlefield entirely, surrender the titles voluntarily, disappear for a period of silence, then eventually return with one major, serious creative project carrying emotional and historical weight, rather than non-stop reactive media output. Whether people agree with that advice or not, the logic behind it was clear. Reduce overexposure before public fatigue hardens permanently. But Sykes argued the strategy faces one overwhelming obstacle: the titles themselves. According to his reading, Harry might theoretically accept stepping away from the Sussex branding structure entirely. Meghan, however, almost certainly would not, because critics argue the titles now sit at the center of the entire commercial ecosystem. The lifestyle branding, the media positioning, the autobiography value, the exclusivity, the celebrity leverage. Without the titles, the commercial architecture weakens dramatically, and this is where Paula Froelich's phrase, "days of our Montecito lives," suddenly makes sense, because the panel argued the Sussex operation now functions almost like a continuous, serialized content stream. One headline rolls directly into another. Magazine covers, lifestyle launches, Instagram, activity, celebrity networking stories, tribute articles, business rumors, media appearances, every single item relatively small on its own, but collectively creating an almost non-stop cycle of attention maintenance. And according to critics, that pace itself reveals pressure underneath the surface. The final point raised may have been the most difficult for Sussex supporters to dismiss: polling. Tom Sykes acknowledged that individuals who meet Harry and Meghan at events often leave with positive impressions, but he argued that small event audiences are not representative of the much larger public consuming the coverage from afar. And increasingly, the broader numbers tell a very different story. Polling discussed during the broadcast reportedly placed Harry and Meghan dramatically behind William and Catherine in public favorability, which means the institutional contrast the palace appears willing to patiently wait for may already be happening naturally in public perception over time. And in many ways, the entire debate now circles back to one unavoidable question: if royal titles truly do not matter, then why hold on to them so tightly? That was the contradiction highlighted repeatedly throughout the royally unfiltered discussion. Publicly, the Sussex narrative often suggests the value lies in service, independence, and personal identity rather than aristocratic status. But operationally, critics argue the opposite appears true, because every major commercial venture, interviews, branding, lifestyle launches, speaking engagements, magazine profiles, even the Sussex identity itself, still leans heavily on royal association, and audiences notice contradictions like that immediately. You cannot simultaneously argue that titles are irrelevant while continuing to structure an entire commercial ecosystem around them. The public sees both messages at once, and according to commentators like Tom Sykes and Paula Froelich, that inconsistency is precisely what has started eroding trust in the Sussex brand over time. Then came another uncomfortable point raised during the broadcast: Meghan's pre-Harry celebrity status. Froelich pointed to the original Suits viewing figures, noting that while the show later found renewed streaming success, its initial American television audience remained relatively modest during Meghan's run on the series. In practical entertainment industry terms, critics argue Meghan was not entering the relationship as an A-list global celebrity. The royal connection dramatically expanded her international profile. But Froelich also acknowledged something many critics overlook: Meghan's early social positioning was strategically intelligent. Toronto, where Suits filmed, overlapped heavily with Commonwealth social circles and elite networking spaces Harry was likely to encounter. According to Froelich's interpretation, Meghan navigated that environment skillfully and entered the royal structure extremely effectively. The problem in this reading came afterward, because critics argue the same strategic discipline used to enter the institution did not continue once global fame and commercial opportunities exploded around the Sussex household. Instead, the operation increasingly became reactive, fragmented, and dependent on constant visibility cycles. And this is why all these stories, the People magazine cover, the Australian interview, the celebrity networking stories, the autobiography speculation, the fashion controversies, the non-stop media output, are not really separate events at all. They are symptoms of the same larger dynamic. According to commentators on the broadcast, the Sussex household now appears locked into an ongoing cycle where sustained public attention is financially and culturally necessary. Meanwhile, the monarchy itself continues operating under the so-called "let them" doctrine: minimal direct engagement, minimal public rebuttal, and long-term patience while the public gradually forms its own conclusions. And perhaps that is the most fascinating part of all, because this battle is no longer unfolding primarily through palace statements or official responses. It is unfolding through accumulation, headlines piling onto headlines, public reactions building over years, comedy shows, polling numbers, media analysis, celebrity culture, and audience fatigue all slowly shaping perception in real time. If you've enjoyed this deep dive into the hidden strategy, media warfare, and long-term institutional chess game unfolding behind the royal headlines. Make sure to subscribe, because the deeper you follow this story, the clearer the larger pattern becomes. And right now, many observers believe the pattern is becoming impossible to ignore.